Oh, well, hello again, Internet. Yes, come to you bringing tidings of mirth and merriment. And 100 trillion subs! Exclamation mark. Kapow! Wowzers. Wait, what? What does that mean? Well, it's an expression of joy. Wait, no, I mean about the 100 trillion subs. Oh, that. Well, my question is, when will there be 100 trillion subscribers to anything? A channel, a platform, the total mass of the network. And before you say, that's ridiculous, there's only 8 billion humans, how can there be 100 trillion subscribers to anything? Well, I will answer you with one word. Bots. Huh? Yes. I know. Bots have been taking a hit from people claiming to be fighting them and reducing the amount of their existence across different networks. But let me put forth this proposition. Bots will only be held back as long as they are until the people that make the bots make better bots that get around the bot blockers. How do I know that this will be true? Well, do you remember that thing called spam? Okay. Do you remember how efficient your email was before you were flooded with spam? Right. And then came spam blockers, spam filters, right? Spam management systems, etc. Now let me posit this. How many of those spam management systems have worked for you long term? Have you not seen an increase in spam over the years? Even if your inbox is relatively free of them, are there still not more of them appearing over time? And the answer, of course, is yes. And the reason, of course, is the people that create the spam simply come up with better ways to get around the spam filters. It's like the old saying goes, invent a better mouse, someone will invent a better mousetrap, and then someone will invent a better mouse again. Right? It's an ongoing, never-ending cycle. Now, what can be done about these bots? Well, there already are things being done about the bots. Algorithm changes, filters, blockers. But remember, not all of the bots are necessarily spam. Many bots serve a useful purpose. They might send messages to subscribers of lists. They might distribute and redistribute information to disparate groups. They have all kinds of purposes. And what about when animals, even insects, hook into the network? I know, you're laughing. Sounds like a stupid joke. But why? We see over time that as animals continue to evolve, we see that animals become more intelligent and, sure as day, are using more and more technology. Who is to say that in another 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years, there won't still be a powerful network that connects all living beings who are sentient and capable of using said network, and that the sentient beings will expand well beyond humanity. say it won't include all the apes, maybe even many monkeys, maybe other mammals, dolphins and whales, dogs and cats. Maybe it'll even include cetaceans of different kinds, crustaceans maybe. Maybe it will include octopus and squid. And we know that octopus are incredibly powerful, intelligent animals. Sure, you could say, not like us, but give it some time. At some point, there is likely to be a level that they attain that allows them to use some kind of technology. And who's to say we won't be implanting chips or growing organically bio-friendly chips that then naturally grow from one generation to the next because we implanted in their DNA. Could happen. Doesn't mean it will. But it's certainly within the realm of possibility that we could create such things and that we could, sooner rather than later, see intelligent species of all sorts growing with embedded chips and by birth being connected to a network that is connecting all sentient, capable beings. And then what? Will we all be the Borg? Will all animal life on Earth be one? Well, we don't have to all be one. We may be, but we may not be. What I can tell you is, as time goes by, as long as the network exists, it will continue to grow, at least until something catastrophic ends it, or something better replaces it. If something catastrophic ends it, it may very well end all life on Earth, because it is a global network, decentralized in some respects. Yes, there are nodes that are centralized, but by and large, the protocol that runs the network is decentralized. That is the whole purpose. So it would survive even a nuclear war. What does that mean? Very simply, it means that if there were to be a catastrophic event that would end the network, at this point in humanity, it would pretty much need to end the entire species that is currently the sentient species evolving and developing the capabilities of the network and sciencing the other animals that may eventually use it, and some already do in various experiments. So could there ever be 100 trillion beings connected to a network? Well, what if every ant and bee and fly and fruit fly and mosquito was connected to the network bioorganically through changes in their DNA? I know, it sounds ridiculous. I know. It also sounded ridiculous to people not but 50 years ago that we would all have communications tools in the palm of our hand that would allow us to relay information back and forth and transact values and do all kinds of wonderful things that we do today with these little rectangles we keep in our pockets. Yes, there were some sci-fi books and movies and shows that discussed the possibilities. Yes, it was a popular topic in consumer magazines that we might one day have a network of wireless devices. But all that seemed like pie in the sky, science fiction, good for a read, but not serious stuff in a world that was still heavily mechanically and analog driven. However, as the digital age has come on, we have seen a very clear route to connecting more and more beings. And by the way, non-sentient beings or non-sentient, non-animated mechanical things are also connecting to the network. Like what? What do you mean? Like, when was the last time you got into a car made, I don't know, after the year 2010 that didn't have microchips in it? And in a way connected to some form of the network. Right. Doesn't really happen. When you go get your car tested, checked for maintenance, don't they connect those little computer doodads to it and read information about your car from the network? They sure do. When you're driving your car, does it have a GPS in it? If it does, it's connected to the network. Maybe your GPS is a standalone unit. Well, that's fine. Your GPS unit is connected to the network. And it's in your car. And it's plugged into your car, giving power or getting power from the car, right? Unless it's running on batteries. No matter how you slice it, there is network activity happening within the confines of the car. And you could say the same thing about airplanes and buses, scooters and mopeds. The more stuff that's being made, the more connections are being created. Did you know that light bulbs very often have Wi-Fi transmitters in them? Why? Because people like to be able to connect their light bulbs to the internet. Why would you do that? Light shows or home control systems, right? Power usage systems. There's no shortage of light bulbs made in places like China that have these devices in them. People who are paranoid will say, it's because they're trying to hack us. Maybe, but really no, because if you know anything about these systems, you'll know that's not how it works. They would need to know the password to your router to be able to hack you through that connection. And that device would have to be activated, and it would have to be recognized and connected to your router in the first place. So no, it's not very likely that anyone's hacking you through your light bulbs. However, if you did connect your light bulb to your home router, etc., and you don't manage your password systems carefully, well, then yes, it is possible. Or at least they could get free internet off of your light bulb, which would be kind of funny. So, when you consider how many of these things that are created every year exist and last for a period of time on Earth until they are destroyed by time, use, accidents, what have you, it is entirely possible that 100 trillion things will connect to the network. Do I mean they'll all be connected at once? Well, they don't necessarily have to be. But could it be? Sure. It entirely could be. Right? How many earthworms are there? Add up all the insects, add up all the slugs and worms and snails and mosquitoes and flies and bees and hornets and you name it. Every possible kind of species you can think of. From those that are vast to those that are even precious few. You don't think that 100 trillion forms of animal life, and plant life, by the way, because we could certainly do it in plants if we can do it in animals, and inanimate objects like cars and scooters and bikes and planes and motorbikes and trains and buses and airplanes and rockets and God knows whatever else, and utensils, forks, spoons, knives. How great would it be not to ever lose a knife again, because it knows where it is and you can track it, or to not lose a fork or a spoon because you can track it. How great would it be not to lose socks that go through the washing machine and disappear, but you can track them, right? Yes, you might say, well, that's an invasion of privacy. I wouldn't want anybody having access to my socks. Maybe you don't, but maybe in another 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, it will be completely normal. And when you say, oh, that's crazy, why would anybody ever want that? Well, I would then pause it to say to you, you know what's crazy? What's crazy is using a free email system that runs ads to you that are personalized and customized to your interests. And it knows what you want better than you do. And yet you use it and you subject yourself to those messages willingly because the service is free, rather than pay, oh, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe $5, maybe $50 a month, depending on your budget and what you need, to get ad-free commercial services paid by the customer rather than by the advertiser. Right? But most people choose the free stuff. They give away their privacy, and they've already given it away many years ago for the right and privilege of using free stuff, because they thought that it would be great. And for many people it is. Maybe even arguably for most people it is. But is it great for everyone? Probably not. Probably there are people, and we know there are, who prefer having privacy and who are willing to pay a little bit to have it if they want to use services that connect them to a shared network. Now, what does this mean? How will this change anything? Who cares if there's 100 trillion of anything connected to the internet? Well, you might not care now. However, I would argue that if you think that it won't make a difference to the way we live, then you're wrong. How do I know that? Well, because when there were less than 1 million people on the internet, I can tell you I was already saying to people, this will change how people live. And back then people were saying, you're crazy. Internet's not going to change anyone's life. It's just a fad, it's just a trend, it'll go away. Like the summer's breeze. Okay. Well, here we are, many, many years later. Internet's still around. Many fads and trends have come and gone. Not the internet. And I can tell you that as things developed on the internet and more people signed up and were joining, and by the way, still are, we saw continuous data that kept growing and growing, showing that people were changing incrementally, but were changing the way they behave, the way they shop, the way they search for information, the way they use information, the way they process information, the way they send correspondence back and forth to each other. Do you remember that thing called the postal system? Or the postal service? Or the mail? Right, people used to use that, to send handwritten letters to each other. I know, what a crazy idea. Who does that? Well, people do. And in fact, if you send handwritten letters, very often it's considered quite touching and intimate and personal and caring and considerate, and all these wonderful values that we associate with taking the time to correspond with somebody manually, to send them a letter that has more meaning and more depth and more of a connection than just an email. Now, why? Well, partly old habits and rituals and traditions, but also partly because it shows you took the time to handwrite a letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on that envelope, write the delivery address on the envelope and the sender address, get that puppy mailed, either by putting it in your mailbox, or going to the post office, or handing it to a letter carrier, or dropping it off at a mailbox in the street, whatever it might be. You took more time and you put in more consideration and effort to transmit a message to somebody by hand than you did by just jotting down some words electronically with your keyboard and pressing send. Now I know. As somebody who did quite a lot of pioneering of email use cases over the years, it may sound ironic that I'm sitting here telling you about the joys of handwriting letters. The truth is, I've always found handwriting letters to be wonderful and a great way to show appreciation. And even I don't do it as much as I'd like, but still, occasionally, will write a letter to somebody because I think it sends a better message in many ways. I can take the exact same message, and yes, if it's time sensitive, of course, email makes more sense, or messaging apps make more sense because they're instantaneous. But if it's something that is more personal and may stand the test of time and isn't time sensitive, a handwritten letter is a very powerful thing. And now, before you tell me, Yasha, this has nothing to do with 100 trillion subs, I will tell you that it does. Because 100 trillion subs will still contain some portion of sentient beings who will also see the value in sending analog messages to people by things like handwritten notes. So, can there be 100 trillion subs? 100 trillion members of a network? 100 million whatevers? Certainly possible, mathematically, not a problem. Will there be? Maybe. Doesn't really matter. What matters is that you understand, that you comprehend, really, that even with 2 billion or 3 billion quote-unquote internet users, even with, frankly, it's far more than that, even with 7 billion phones, or 9 billion, or 12 billion, or whatever the magic number is that are actually connected to the network already, and many other devices, cars, houses, light bulbs, other fixtures, certain animals who wear GoPro cameras, whatever it might be, no matter how you slice it, even though there are already more devices than there are people connected to the internet, that does not mean we have reached maturity. Product maturity of the internet is a long ways away. We are still at the very beginning of this information revolution. And you might say, the gold rush is over. What are you talking about? Anybody who wasn't wealthy in the 90s, they don't have a chance now, unless they're just lucky to be connected in a click or whatever. I would say that's just not true. There will be many gold rushes. There will be many innovations. There will be many successful entrepreneurs. We are at the beginning of the information age. The Industrial Revolution lasted hundreds of years. And you could argue each revolution in each age lasts less and less time because of technology. So we shift from one age to another quicker. Yes. The difference is The information age travels already at light speed. So where we go from here is not a measure of how fast we get to the next age. This age will last into the next ages because information, even when it's fully commoditized and has but a scant value per piece of information, it will still have value as a whole. And people will always need to process information. Even if it's embedded into our brains and we all have a full copy of the current, most updated version of the entire internet in our brains, and we don't even need to move to know everything, it will still have the value of being information that we find useful. Because as the world continues to exist, and as the universe continues to exist, and as our knowledge continues to expand, that database will continually be expanded and updated. And we will continually need to learn new things. So to think that there is a stopping point is limiting and false. The only stopping point will be when all the beings that are connected and all the items and things that are connected cease to be, and there is no more update on the entire network. And that would be, again, probably the end of many life forms, if not all sentient life forms that use said network, if not more than that. At which point, arguably, we have bigger problems to deal with. If we'll even be around to deal with it. So on that positive, happy note, just remember, we are at the beginning, not the end, of the information revolution. Early days these are. Much you can gain by involving yourself, learning things outside your comfort zone, innovating, developing, and becoming the next very successful genius. Right? On that note, happy innovating. Ta-ta.